Watch this.
How's the game feeling then for next week, Bruce?
It's all right. You just never know. Like it's a funny thing. Yeah, the weather and the conditions can just be so chaotic that you can just find yourself with your head down, just trying to hit, a half decent shot, and then all of a sudden, a few days later, you're doing quite well, and you think you're in with a sniff. But equally, you can be swinging the club quite well and just get blown off the course. And I don't know. You just sort of learn to accept it. I think the more you play in it,
This is, of course, the President's Putter. Bruce is playing in your. Is this your third now?
Fourth.
There was one cancelled, wasn't there?
Yeah, fourth. Yeah, fourth.
You played in 3 previously.
Yeah.
1-1, finalist 1. What happened to the third one?
Lost on Friday afternoon.
What's that? Like second day?
Yeah, fourth round, third or fourth round, depending on whether you have a bye or you have to play early on Thursday morning. So,
for anyone who doesn't know anything about the President's Putter, Bruce, just enlighten us quickly.
So the President's Putter is the annual meeting of the Oxford and Cambridge Golfing Society, which are those people who've won blues at Oxford or Cambridge in golf by playing in the varsity match. So yeah, you get your blue, you ask to become a member of the society, and then you get to play, golf. Typically scratch foursomes match play golf. But every January we have our annual meeting at Rye, the President's Putter, where we play singles match play, random draw, and yeah, it's great fun.
Well, we'll be wishing you all the very best with that, Bruce. I'll still have a keen eye on it. We're going to be in America this time next week. I'm absolutely amped for that.
I know. Yeah, we're
starting the year off really hot here.
I think that Sam has promised to be on the bag for you at the putter, like every year, and he's just never done it. Like that should be his performance appraisal for this year.
Well, we'll come round to that, won't we?
Tell us about your American trip, because we can't let that go without a bit of detail.
Well, hopefully we can bring back a few little nuggets from it. But we're going to play in an event for a couple of days at a hoopy, which I think we are very lucky to be
involved in. Match Club, to give it its
Hoopy Match Club in Cobbtown, Georgia. And we're adding on a few other courses. The rest of it all to be decided and locked down at this stage. But yeah, flying over to Atlanta on the 4th, going back on the 10th. So very excited. I mean, what a start to the year that's going to be. I think it'll be cold. I kind of look at the forecast and it's sort of like sub-zero temperatures first thing in the morning. But
Is that right?
Yeah, but then it goes up to like 15 or 16 degrees in the day. So I think it just starts off a lot cooler. Whereas we just sit at 3 degrees and it stays cold all day. I think it sort of warms up a bit, but it's meant to be dry. The courses, they all sort of die off a little bit, don't they? So they get that nice brown hue, a lot of them.
Yeah,
so,
I was going to say that dormant grass. It's like a yellow. Yeah, it's
yeah. And I remember Colin actually on the podcast this year, who's obviously a sort of part of the founding and the sort of brains behind a hoopy. He was saying, that time of the year is brilliant because it's when that sort of fast running fescue is kind of more dominant. So yeah, the course should be a lot of fun to play. Super lucky. We'll report back.
But I think that's part of what we're going to do here. I mean, I think we're going to do a bit of a year review around some of the pods we've liked this year, a bit of a performance appraisal, because we are currently sat on the 29th of December. So the end of year review that we're going to put out there. However, hello and welcome back to another episode of the Cookie Jar Golf Podcast in partnership with FootJoy. This is a new thing. This isn't the unofficial official. This is official.
Sold out. Sold out.
Sold out. So for those of you people that have stuck with us for 200 and probably 12 or 13 episodes, we have fought for so very long to kind of stay off being monetized. You will have noticed in November this year, November, December, we started running mid-roll ads. And I mean, we have decided to take the plunge and get a full-time partner, and it's FootJoy, which I think we're all over the moon to be associated with a brand that kind of aligns with our own in terms of the premium quality that they deliver, and we're chuffed to bits, really. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, and I think it's a little exaggeration to say we've held off, until now. We did. I think it's fair to point out that we did do some limited collaborations with them on our Netherlands series, which was released almost exactly a year ago, actually, and they've been a great supporter of ours. And I think we've been very lucky to get to know the guys at FootJoy a little bit better over the last 6-9 months. And yeah, very excited for what this can bring, really. I think we're all very, very optimistic about stepping things up on the content front, bringing more and more, interesting podcast guests on, some more exciting video content, events, merch, you name it. So, yeah.
They're just a really nice. But I think it, for me, it's we're super lucky. Like it's an iconic brand, isn't it? There's no getting away from it. It's an absolutely iconic brand, but it's a lot more than that. I think they're just really good folks. Like we've kind of, I think over the last year and a half, or whatever, fostered like just a really good sort of friendship with those guys. We've done bits and pieces for them, which have helped them out with what they're looking to do. They've massively supported us. I'm thinking, crikey, it's 12 months ago since we started pushing the Netherlands content out there. That feels like an eternity ago. And they were kind of there sort of supporting us and getting us out there and helping us bring that to people. And like there's no getting away from it. I really, really rate the product. Like I don't think there's a much better sight than looking down on a nice pair of slacks and a pair of FootJoy Premiers. I think it really is about as good as it gets in terms of golf footwear. So I'm just a huge fan of them. Do you know what? I think I've got so many pairs I've accumulated.
I'm surprised
part of the deal means we get some more sort of, personal use product, but I'm actually running out of space. I think I've got 12 pairs of FootJoys, which has really crept up on me over the last 18 months or so.
Yeah, it's surprising in a way they actually decided to sponsor us, because I think Sam's consumption of FootJoy golf shoes alone, probably makes up for it all. And you've actually got really into discontinued models as well. So the icons, the classics.
I've got at least 2 pairs of classics that don't fit me, which are just a joy to own. The problem is you buy them, they come at their tight, some of the old models. And I got some advice from one of our previous guests and good friend, Simon Haynes. He's using this sapphire cream to clean them and then using a mink oil to soften them up. So I think over the New Year weekend, I'm planning to apply a little bit of mink oil to some of the classics and try and soften them, because they're not a 36 shoe. Like you really don't want to be doing 2 loops in those things. You'll have no feet left. But yeah, I guess we'll kind of move on from FootJoy a little bit shortly, but really, really delighted to partner with them, personally speaking. Really good people. And I think, hopefully there's an understanding that this helps facilitate better content, whether that's access to people or players or, really good content opportunities, but also just really helps us be more dedicated to what we're doing here and trying to make this better, every year, I guess. So, yeah, first class news.
Yeah, I'm chuffed to bits. And like you said, we did the Hebrides with the trip, for FootJoy. That was the reason we did the Hebrides trip. We did Holland, that was funded by FootJoy. So it's been going on a little while, but chuffed to bits to make it official. So we are going to talk about recapping the year. Pop quiz. How many pods have we done this year?
I got it on the Spotify roundup, so I'm going to hang back.
53.
Sam?
I think it's 63, including this one.
Including this, it is 63. Average length of podcast?
I think they've gotten longer.
They have.
No, yeah, interesting. We did have a
They're
few.
always too long for you, aren't they, Bruce? You always want them shorter.
Yeah, I just sort of I'm just trying to take the temperature of our listeners and our supporter base, and maybe there is an argument for a slightly shorter podcast, but I'm going to go out on a limb and say 1 hour and 5 minutes.
I'm going to go with 55. Are you including the cookie crumbs? Because that's going to massively diminish
they do
our
include the
length.
crumbs.
Yeah. Oh, well, then that's different.
45.
It's 57.
Okay.
Wow.
Now, the crumbs is something new this year. So we've done, I think, 9 crumbs now, which is obviously the throwbacks to old old episodes. They've gone down okay. Put some emotional music over the top. That's what's not to like.
Yeah, exactly. Like it's pieces with inches music, isn't it? It's the Al
Usually,
Pacino
yeah.
speech.
Sometimes it's from Any Given Sunday, but sometimes it's from Friday Night Lights as well.
Okay.
Use a bit of that music. In total, we've done the best part of 61 hours of content this year. Just a smidge over. So,
Was that include films? Does it?
no, that's podcasts.
That's just podcast. 61 hours of podcasting.
10 of those would be Course Diaries.
Okay.
We've dropped off on Eclectic 18. Not many Eclectic 18s.
Okay.
Do you know if you take the average number of listeners times it by the total time listened, that we have racked up 12,000 hours of podcast listening? 12,000 hours. Now, if you walked the entire planet and there was only one person listening to that 12,000 hours, you could walk it 10 and a half times. That's a long way, isn't it?
So,
Been statting.
I while you were doing your statting, I couldn't help but linger on the point about pod length. And the reason being is I've actually really got into the Rest is History podcast this year in a pretty big way.
Me too.
They're so diligent on time of the pod. And I think a really good New Year's resolution would be to try and limit the length of episodes to a really set length. I think it really works well. And I think, 2 hours of Philip Truitt is sensational. Like it's a really good podcast. But I think as a standalone episode, it's too long because the reality is, unless you're driving to Rye or you're driving to, Manchester or whatever, you're in the car for a hell of a long time. You're not going to get through it.
No.
And I think actually breaking those really long ones down into, and just saying, do you know what? An episode is 50 minutes. So if we run to an hour and a half, it's a 2-part podcast. I think that's a really sensible thing to do.
I agree. Yeah,
But
I agree.
I would also defer
I can't
to,
get on board with that. Can't do.
you're not on board with it, are you? I would. This is something I'd be really keen for people to get in touch with us and tell us what they
I just
think.
don't see the point in breaking up pods for breaking up pods' sake. Like, I get it. I get what you're saying, but like, they're going to listen to it anyway. So
I just have tons of half-listened to podcasts.
Yeah,
on my
and I just
phone.
think it means you can there's just that element of satisfaction you get from completing a podcast, and then you know where you're at. You don't have to worry about I don't know, accidentally clearing or swiping up on your Spotify and then not going back to the right part in the episode if you didn't manage to listen to the whole way through it. I don't know what the average commute time is for people when they go to work in the morning, but I think having something around the 45-50 minute mark is more sensible than going into a 2-hour pod.
Well, if that's what you boys think, I mean, we're a democracy here. It's 2v1. However,
it's the most undemocratic business ever. It's full of lobbyists, and I mean, I'm really a dictator within, but
But we need to get on with it then, don't we? If we're going to make it pair.
Yeah, we do.
Can I just touch on golf performance this year, gents, as well?
Are we going to go there first? Are we?
Yeah, I'd like to.
I think this is pod related, but carry on.
Okay, well let's keep our powder dry then.
I thought we could reflect back on a couple of pods that we've enjoyed doing, participated in part doing this year, and just have a chat about why you enjoyed them, and then reflect on it. Maybe have a little chat on it. We're going to do performance appraisal at the end, which, if you like, Sam, can include golf performance. But Bruce, what did you enjoy? Let's try and keep the recency bias out of it. But some pods you enjoyed doing this year.
I mean, not to procrastinate again, because I know we've had over here. But I thought it was interesting just going back through it. Like Sam mentioned the point earlier, the Netherlands series seems like a lifetime ago. And granted, there was a bit of a delay in when we recorded and shot that content and when we released it. But we released the Netherlands podcast at the start of the year, which was, I personally find the tour pods a really, really enjoyable bit of content that we do when we're just chatting about stuff that we've seen on the road and how we kind of each enjoyed or experienced the courses that we've played. Weirdly, this year, I think we've only done 3 Eclectic 18s with Bledge, Sam Cooper, and Zane. So there's much fewer, Eclectic 18 podcasts, which not necessarily saying it's a good thing or a bad thing, but I do think it's something that would be nice to do more of, as it's a bit of like a window into, different people's sort of storytelling in golf and their careers in golf. I mean, we've done a huge number of guest pods, which is obviously, a key part of what we do and something that we all find really, really enjoyable. For me personally, I think, if I had to limit myself to 2 or 3 of those that really stand out, I think John Simpson, that podcast that Sam and I recorded, was a particular highlight. I found that really, really.
Yeah, you went to his house, didn't you?
Well, yeah, we went to his house. We were treated like kings when we went there. I don't know if you remember, Sam, when we
Yeah, absolutely.
Had a drink and some crisps and stuff on the sofas and just chatted away to John.
I seem to recall there was some kind of some concern about whether you take your shoes off, and it was all sort of in someone's house, and it was all a bit.
Well, you think
the etiquette of being in someone's house.
Puts you on the back foot a bit, doesn't it, when you're in someone's house? You just sort of very mindful you're in their space, I guess. So you just sort of, I don't know whether you, but he's just a super guy, isn't he, John?
Yeah. And he's
so
got a powerful story. He kicks it off talking about like his early days playing at North Foreland, which is obviously a course that you guys had played like a few weeks before then, coincidentally, when you were down at, in Kent playing at Royal St George's in Deal. So that was like a nice link up, and it's a very, very inspiring story talking about, his troubles with polio, I think, and how he sort of overcome them and had just an unbelievable career in the game of golf, being on good terms with Mark McCormack, managing Faldo, Langer, these amazing stories that he's got from working with the top players in the game and kind of helping them in their careers, to the Simpson Cup and that incredibly sort of moving work that he's done with British and American veterans, and how he's kind of brought them together, in the form of like competitive golf, really. And he was just, not only was he a great storyteller and it was very moving in parts, he also had a wicked sense of humor. I mean, Sam's going to probably seize this one thing, but like when Sam tripped over his words a little bit, at the beginning, just saying like, you lost your leg, but obviously very sadly, like, tell us about that. And Tom was like, well, I haven't actually.
I don't think I have I? Unless you know something I don't. And you're just thinking,
can you help me out? Can you help me out here, please? Just that was definitely one that sticks in the memory, I think, and very, very grateful that John was so generous with his time, and also, let us two Muppets go around to his house and yeah.
It's a classic example of a. Well, that was actually what I was just about to say. Is it's actually weird how Cookie Jar kind of works, because actually that's a friend of ours, chap called Andrew, who listens to the pod quite regularly. Is very keen to sort of like help out or encourage or put us in contact with people, and he knows John, and he was like, I think John will be a really good episode for you. I think John's got a great story in golf. And it's like, yeah, brilliant. And we're very lucky to be put in touch with him to record that, and it's brilliant how that works. Like, I think there's so, and by extension, events, meeting people at events, that then leads to something else, or so many of these things are just a constant accumulation of making friends with people that leads to something interesting that then means you meet somebody else. Another example would be the Mick Wells podcast, going up to Cabot Highlands, spending some time with Mick, staying in touch with Mick, having they all just seem to lead to the next thing. There's never like a I don't think we set out this year, it's fair to say, with the goal of doing 2 podcasts on sustainable agronomy. And yet they've been 2 really good episodes.
Yeah. I always think we should do more agronomy.
Yeah, of course. Well, absolute fiend for the topic.
Just a nerd. Just an absolute nerd.
I think in a way, that's what seems to have struck a chord with quite a lot of the listeners on the Alistair Beggs podcast in particular, which is obviously a fairly recent pod that we released. But another highlight, because it's probably fair to say it might have been our most popular podcast of the year, and we only released October, November time.
General sort of sentiment on it is like crazy, isn't it? Like really, really positive. And I think, if I'm honest, we all probably thought this is perhaps a little bit anarchy, this stuff, and I think it kind of bridges the gap between someone who's. You always think there's 2 types of guests you can have on a pod: someone who's hyper knowledgeable and interesting and has a really good understanding of the subject matter, or somebody who's a really good, compelling storyteller and it, presents things in a really easy to consume way. You get one of those two things, and you usually on to a winner. If you get them both, that usually makes for a great episode.
Gold
And
dust.
It wasn't
Yeah.
it exactly? Like, I think it was pitched in the right way of like, we're not going to assume too much knowledge here. And I think, Nils, you've got an unbelievable knowledge of agronomy, and I think you need to just, you need to just
Extremely
say
polite.
the fact that that is your true calling.
he's incredible, isn't
whereas,
he? He really is
I'm-
one of Britain's top grass experts now.
I've got it down to I can sniff the grass and know what it is. It's just like,
But you restrain
know.
yourself because we kind of kept it pretty high level and accessible, I think, which is something that makes these podcasts kind of engaging and a bit more appealing for a wider audience, is that we're not just going straight in and talking about bag shot sand. There's a little bit in there about bag shot sand, but we can just talk more principles. And Alistair, for someone who is as immensely knowledgeable as he is about the subject, he was just pitched it for kind of everyday club golfers to be able to listen to and probably learn something from.
Well, Tom actually did a brilliant job on that podcast of making Alistair feel like he was the SME in the room, like he was the guy that knew the most about grass on that podcast. You made him feel that way, didn't you?
Which it's hard to stay quiet. It was hard to stay quiet.
So
on my own podcast. Yeah. But you need to recognize when experts are in the room, and I certainly wasn't the expert in the room. So I thought I expertly stayed quiet. So lucky me.
What was your other favorites, Bruce? Any other ones where you thought that was a lot of fun doing? I mean, I'm going to put it out there without putting words in your mouth. It was bloody good fun doing a Course Diaries episode from Layboard together. We had a pretty great.
Yeah. I mean, that was. I mean, funnily enough, we've done like 9 or 10 Course Diaries episodes this year, which again is great to see because, in many ways, like they're almost like the lifeblood of what we do. Is just going out and kind of, I don't know, having a bit of a laugh at some of these courses that we played out for the first time. That was an amazing trip to Layboard in June. Quite a lot of use we've had out of the Eurotunnel in recent, in the last couple of years. So we've really become quite familiar with that mode of travel, and I must say it exceeds expectations every time. The only slight hiccup we've had is just getting stuck a little bit on the way back in French passport control, that side of the channel. But it's always it's always a fun trip, and obviously we were hosted royally at Layboard, which was great fun. I think some of the pods that I enjoyed like listening to and wasn't a part of, I thought the Jim Hartzell pod was incredibly powerful and moving bit of content. Just
what guy?
Encourage anyone to go and listen to that, and just how this guy's just found so much, I don't know, joy, peace, understanding from going and playing at these cool places up in Scotland that you were then able to go and visit a few months later. Like, it's amazing how that kind of went full circle in a sense. You could just hear about his amazingly moving and poignant story, which I won't spoil for people who've not listened to that podcast yet. And then you could go and see at these places like Dunavity and
and No Laying Up did a fabulous job of covering that. And if you haven't seen When Revelation Comes, which is the No Laying Up film on that, I mean, I urge you to. It's phenomenal. So Jim was brilliant. Jim's such a inspiring guy. I remember being emotional at the end of that, actually. Being a parent. It was an emotional pod, I thought, but I'm glad you enjoyed it.
No, I thought it was a great bit of content. And then we're going to round it out. I'd say Mike Clayton at the Open, just getting that guy. Was it in Sam Cooper's backyard, sat on the bags there, and having a few other people passing in. Rees and Clayton and Cartwright and so on. Just Mike Clayton was on searing form, wasn't he?
When you say someone's laid back, he was actually, we've got video, he was actually laid back, like he was lying down.
He was almost looking at me, how Kate Winslet looks at DiCaprio in the Titanic, it's like he was fully reclined like that.
Well, is that when naked. Is that when she was pushing me off the pine, off the door? Go away, Leo.
It was like, when it's like the sort of paint me like one of your students, Jack.
Your French girls.
That was it. So he was like just fully reclined back there, and he was just pouring gold. I mean, it's a really good listen. But I think anytime you stick a mic in Clayton's hand, that week was so good because Dan Davies said obviously previous guest of the party, he was hanging around at Hoy Lake, and we had the drinks and stuff in the garden. I mean, that was a great week, wasn't it? And he sort of said, I think he gave Clates a badge from RNGC, which made him an honorary member of RNGC. Anyone who knows nothing about RNGC, go and watch the Story of a Golf Club film on YouTube. Dan's just a legend. Anyway, he says, I'm pretty sure Mike Clayton is really a patron saint of golf. We could pretty much put golf in Clates' sole hands, and the game would do pretty well. I think that's a pretty fair take from Dan. He said there's basically very few living patron saints of the game, and I kind of agree. There's been a lot of fun ones. Yeah, I'm thinking more like the fun ones. Yeah. So I was quite nervous about the podcast with Philip Truitt, if I'm being honest.
Probably the most intimidating one we've done.
Well, he's just an extremely well-respected man who has a huge amount of presence. When he's in the ring.
He's actually a really big man. Like, he's tall.
Yeah.
He looks down on you, not because he's looking down on you, because he's physically looking down on you.
Unless he's on his shooting stick, which also, adds to the gravitas almost. But revered, one of the most sort of knowledgeable historians in the game. Huge book collection. You're very mindful. He's invited you to come into his house to do this, and you're just thinking, "Guy, you're in over your head here." But he's such a great, playful character, isn't he? And we've seen him a couple of times since. He's absolutely gobsmacked, I think, as to who listens to this pod. He keeps going. Really is quite remarkable. Who keeps messaging me saying they've listened to the episode, but just the guy's passion for
his knowledge,
the
though,
book
is so deep. Like, you could just be like, oh, tell me about the founding of Walton Heath, and then, oh, what about Hickory Golf, and then what about this? And it's just like, oh yeah, I can tell you a number of things on those topics. And it was just like, it's almost like we could have deep dived on like any of those things. We only had limited time with him, so it's kind of like flicking around between bits. But
well, I think what I have managed to hopefully get some sort of tacit agreement on from Philip is to do a follow-up on James Braid, which is another sort of specialty topic.
Give the people what they want.
Well, he's an excellent orator. He's a lot of fun, and just that whole environment of going down to his house, and he pulls out these books from the sort of, I think it's the antiquarium or the antiquities, like the really old ones. These are 400 or 500-year-old books, and he's showing you things like the first time golf ever appears in print. It's mind-blowing stuff.
I think one of my highlights of the year was asking him if we were sat at his library, and he said, "If you don't know this is a library, we've got problems."
yeah.
Just yeah.
So I put that down. I mean, I thought the podcast with Colin was great. I think we've already touched on that. We're going out there. Sheehan. Yeah. That's one I'd wanted to do for a while. I remember that actually being quite unenjoyable to record at the time because he had dreadful internet signal.
Yeah, you can tell listening back.
Yeah. So I think I'm looking forward to getting him in analog in January, hopefully, and kind of getting some of his dulcet tones down a little bit better. But it's weird. You flick through what we've released this year, and there's things where I couldn't even tell you what's in them. We did a podcast on the 28th of August, 199, which was close to a milestone. We've got the Walker Cup next, so maybe there's some stuff in there. The title of that podcast is Wandering Thoughts. There's another one, which we released on the 14th of February, not surprisingly, called the Valentine's Day Chit Chat. It's amazing how we can seem to flip from, seemingly fairly sincere and targeted topics like sustainable agronomy to putting out, an episode of 53 minutes in length titled Valentine's Day Chit Chat.
I think we talked about steak and the cinema.
God knows. We seem to get away with it, though, don't we? I don't know. Probably service stations. I've got no idea. Yeah, I mean, look, I'm going to say probably most enjoyable podcast to actually sit down and record was for me, Try. I know we're not short of hyperbole with Try, but sitting down at about 6:30 in the morning outside that little chocolate box clubhouse with David. With the dog urinating on Tom's bag, and God knows, it was one of the most bizarre and enjoyable mornings I think I've had.
Moment of class. Yeah,
I feel like a tour's gone missing this year. I don't know what you think, gents.
yeah.
Like,
Are you
you
kidding
mentioned
me?
that.
We did the Hebrides. It's the biggest tour ever.
I've thrown it
I
out
was
there as a
part of that,
discussion.
so I feel like I've missed out. But I can see how that you guys that qualifies as a tour. I was just
Qualified as a tour.
sideline.
It was like 8 courses in
10
5
rounds,
days.
10 rounds in about 5 days.
Yeah, but I've got
Um,
FOMO, so I just have to, it's a repressed memory for me. So, oh God, Sam and Tom just gallivanting around.
What is that like when you're sat there and you obviously, you've got the control center in front of you and it's just like, oh yeah, the weather in Harris looks quite nice, doesn't it? What is that like? I would absolutely hate seeing you boys going off and playing those places and seeing the
Yeah,
stuff on social now and been thinking, oh, I really would like to be there.
it's tough. It is tough. I mean, yeah, I think this is going to sound really weird, but I can remember one of the Instagram posts. I think it was like an overhead shot of like 2 full English breakfast on a ferry going from Trial, the nearest port there, over, and I was just like, oh
That was
yeah.
Malik to Askanish.
Malig, yeah.
I was like,
Yeah.
yeah, oh God, this one.
Malig to South Uist is that which I believe is no longer in service. I think that stopped being in service about a week
2
after we
weeks.
went.
Well, so that one sticks in the memory where you were
Yeah, I
like,
was just like,
oh,
oh, I would really like to be on tour with the boys right now, tucking in slightly undercooked bacon and dribbly eggs a little bit on this ferry ride, and just sort of, looking forward to what the next day is going to bring. I mean, from the videos and all the photography you shot, it looked incredible, and you had great weather as well. So yeah, FOMO, it's a real thing.
Weather was bonkers out there. It was so good for like spring. Did we do it in spring?
footage we got was absolutely ridiculous. And
Well, I
like
recently put
you
together
put
a
that
little reel.
I'm going to post it, and then now I'm tempted to put a deadline on when we're going to have this film out by, but I think you'd get quite angry with me. But you are going to do it. We've been asleep at the wheel on this one. We are going to get that film out from the Hebrides because I think the reality is if you haven't booked a golf tour for 2024 yet, I think if we push that out in January, I just think there's no other place you're going to end up playing on a tour because, I mean, it is ludicrously good value, isn't it? When you look at the cost of golf, now, I mean, you can't guarantee that weather that we had,
No,
but
you can't. And there's some courses that are more expensive, like Macrahanish, but most of those courses would be quote unquote budget. I mean, you've got Carradale, we did Macrahanish, then we did
Dunavity,
Try, Askanish,
Harris,
Benbecula,
yeah,
Harris,
Ben
Stornoway,
Becula's buttons cheap.
Stornoway. I mean, and then we had
And we didn't even play Ullapool. I mean, that was just sacrilege, really.
I actually don't think there's anywhere in the world I would rather be than Scotland in May and June. Like, there's just something about those crazy long days and even if you get a bit of rain and it starts to clear and it's just sort of like later on in the evening or very, very early, there's just something amazingly, I don't know, kind of cathartic about that time of the year up there and just sort of being in nature and hitting a golf ball around. So yeah, get that video out as soon as possible, that film out as soon as possible, inspire
I
some
think the
people.
hard thing is actually piecing it together, isn't it? Because
the
what we
narrative
did
is what's really struggling for me right now. I mean, I need to put it together, but what I'm struggling with is that we've done this in the past where we take sound samples from the podcast and put it in, but that's kind of not how we filmed it. And a lot of it we did on iPhone. We wanted to see what it looked like. And I think the footage is not horrendous. It's not the best thing we've ever done, but it's not horrendous. But the narrative is what I'm struggling with because we wanted to do it around this sort of eight course match that we didn't really end up doing a whole narrative around it. So we need to work out how we're going to do that. We've got some time, late Jan, early Feb. So maybe start to put it together then and hopefully out by March. I'd say that was a success. Stop staring at me. I think that would be a success.
I'd like it a little sooner than March, wouldn't you, Bruce?
Well, he's notoriously fast in the edit, so if he says it's March, then I guess he's got it March.
Just before we move on to appraisals, because I'm not getting, because you can mug me off in my appraisal if you like about my edits. I would just like to touch on a couple of pods that we haven't noted, and I think it's worth noting. I think all the eclectic 18s we've done this year, all three of them, I think were great. Love doing Coopers, Sam Cooper, previous guest of the pod, but doing that about like his eclectic 18 around that trip around the UK, doing all the links courses was very cool, and hopefully inspired some visits to some places, and of course the infamous pod from the pub with the golf history fails with Simon Haynes, which was one of the Sam was like, he was on speed. That, like, honestly,
it was so funny.
The chink of the glasses and the cutlery in the background, and
it's
Haynes,
so funny.
Brilliant, isn't he?
I mean, I knew you were going to bring that up, so I was like, I can't really throw this in as well, but it's so funny.
You couldn't actually let him finish his stories because we'd heard some of them before, and you were so amped about it. You were like finishing his stories for him.
Let me share my knowledge. Let me share my knowledge, Simon.
Because the history fails he told me about, and the thing is, that whole thing stemmed from the first film, the start of the year. That moment when we were so proud that we'd put the Eindhoven film out, thought, oh, that looks lovely. There you go. Great. Cult. Lovely. Oh, brilliant. All this cult stuff ahead of us. And Tom had taken himself off on holiday. And you get that picture from Simon through on WhatsApp. And I vividly remember it. Like, when you put a film out on YouTube, you just sort of like, because I'm on the socials and stuff, there's quite a lot of button pressing, and you're going to get something wrong, and you want to try and give the films the best berth they can, because it's disappointing if no one watches a film, because you know how much time and effort Tom puts into it. And then we'd been so fastidious with like how we'd gone and curated all this stuff. You get this picture through from Simon Haynes within about 25 minutes saying Barry Colt ? I thought. So, there was that mad scramble thinking, God, right, we're out with Japan next week here. Someone's going to have to fix this. But the stories around how people get it wrong, and some of the things like the guy with the glasses sat with Alistair Mackenzie and everyone thinks it's C.V. McDonald. He's just some bloke wearing glasses sat with Mackenzie. It's so funny.
The Wentworth painting as well yeah, there's just some great bits in there.
Classy stuff. But we're lucky having a lot of people around like that, aren't we? I think, before we drift on to appraisals, I do think, we're not going to be able to thank everyone really in this for the year and everything, but we are super, super fortunate about people who either just encourage you and say nice things, but people who like do things that genuinely meaningfully help. Simon's in that category as somebody who he's way too giving of his time to sort of help keep us looking like we're mildly knowledgeable, or Brewdog, who threw a load of alcohol-free beers at us for the Hebrides, or gave us a bar for the whole night in the Walker Cup on the Saturday and just said, have at it, chaps. Ross, bloody hell, Ross down at the secretary at the Rye Artisans Golf Club came to our spring meeting earlier this year, and we were joking about the smell of the Allwoodley locker room, and he's a carpenter by trade, and he said, it's the wood. It's that sort of brand of wood, and anyone who's been to the locker rooms at Allwoodley knows it has a slightly funny smell. And he says that's the wood they use. So he's taken it upon himself to create a trophy for all of our event winners, and then it's beautiful, isn't it? Absolutely beautiful.
Totally unprompted, wasn't it? Totally unprompted.
Crazy, and he's made it out of the same wood from the Allwoodley locker room. Talk about niche.
He's also looking in great nick. He's like got all hench. Do you not know this?
No?
Do you not know this? Yeah, he's got himself all fit and stuff. So he's fit and carving. I'd say it's literally, it's just the holy grail of man.
He's all man. 5 events this year. I think pretty good.
2 retro days,
spring
meeting, Walker Cup, and
Glen Eagles. Yeah.
I'd say 6. I think you could split up the Walker Cup with the Glen Eagles.
Oh, and Masters Friday. I think that's 6.
6, yeah.
7 if you have 2 events of the Walker Cup.
But we had the night, and then we had the
Glen Eagles day. It's mental, isn't it? You look at that and you think, Glen Eagles.
I mean, that was incredible, wasn't it?
Allwoodley and Moortown, who said, "Yeah, great, come and bring."
I wasn't there.
Oh, yeah. Glen Eagles was unbelievably good. I went there thinking, God.
That we said it before, but that weekend was probably the most spectacular golf event, sort of elite professional golf event. It's not professional, but you know what I mean. Elite golf event that I think we've all been to. That was
easy
highlight of the year. highlight of the whole cookie jar journey, I would say, in just terms of like going there and having a great few days covering that. And also, just to circle back on the podcast, how fun was that podcast we recorded with Cal?
Yeah, at the Walker
Bill,
Cup,
while
episode
the
200.
press conference. Yeah.
We snuck
Uh,
him into the into the media center, didn't we? Just said,
Didn't
"Walk with confidence, Cal. You'll be okay."
my name's
Um,
Cal, and I love the party.
yeah, the OG back in the saddle, which was really cool. Great to have him back on that. It was just a good year, and I think like if we haven't made it clear enough, I think we'd all like to thank everybody that's helped us along the way. We truly are grateful, and we'd like to thank everyone who's listened because it still boggles my mind that people actually listen to us. And you know, when people say to you, someone says to me something like, "What do you do for a living?" It's like, well, kind of like podcast. I said, "What do you podcast about?" Golf. All right. What about golf? I don't really know. We just chat nonsense about golf when people listen, and I I have moments all the time where I sit back and think, I'm just so bloody lucky. So thank you to everyone anyway. Let's not get emotional. Appraisals. This is going to be fun, right? So we've decided we're going to do a little appraisal. Um, who would the way that we're going to do it is I'm appraising Sam, Sam's appraising Bruce, and Bruce is appraising I.
Can we kick off with Bruce appraising Tom?
I think there's got to be
Okay.
comments from all members of the group, though. This
Yeah. This is a collective discussion.
But you're giving me, some things I've done okay, hopefully. Some even better ifs, maybe. Golf performance. I don't know what you're going to dive into. It's left it quite open, Bruce. So be kind.
I mean,
pay it forward.
yeah, there's a lot to go at here, isn't there? Because aside from being your usual wonderful podcast controversialist self and holding us to account, filmmaking this year has just been absolutely scalding hot, to use the words of one of our enthusiastic followers down in the southwest coast. Obviously the Netherlands series, that was a pretty quick hot start to the year releasing those, which I know there was a huge amount of time in the edit room for you there, Mills, and just you did very well to not have a sense of humor failure when Sam and I were making little ill-judged jokes and comments during the Christmas period last year, having had a very, very nice time in the Netherlands. And then obviously the two of us didn't quite appreciate the scale of the task in front of you making all of those films.
Would you say I'm a diva when it comes to filmmaking?
Christ, just a bit.
Yeah,
I mean,
all great creative types are, though, aren't they? That's the reality of it. I think you need that sort of diva-like quality if you're gonna be trotting out some original creative excellence.
It's hard to break through some of the, some of that sort of technical know-how that he puts up as a bit of a blocker. So if you say, "Can you do something?" he'll generally throw some things back at you that don't make complete sense. And I think a lot of the time it's bluster, and you have to sort of push through a little bit. So just explain why we can't do that? And eventually,
I don't need to explain myself to anybody. Thank you very much.
No, and I think that's the thing is you're a wonderful sole operator, aren't you? Brilliant sort of, you're a bit of a lone wolf, aren't you? Really, in your career today.
I think I'd be a wonderful sole trader, but as a limited partnership, it's a struggle.
A reckless individual to work with.
I do apologize. I know I'm a bit of a nuisance.
Collaboration doesn't come easy, does it?
Nope.
But we're sort of nearly 4 years into this endeavor, and I think it's we realize how you work and how how we sort of pick and choose our questions or our pointers. Not that it really needs all that much, because obviously the stuff that you trot out is superb, and I think we've probably come a long way from when I was suggesting changing the music to the very first Scottish tour that we did back in 2020. You said, "Can't do it, have to change the whole film."
That was like a red rag to a bull.
So I know,
really?
I know now what sort of questions are. Well, I say I know. I have a better idea of what questions are sort of fair game or recommendation, I should say. But I guess I don't know if this is fair. It kind of seems to be the case to me, but maybe you have a different take on it. The preparing for the Open Championship film with Bledge and the Hoylake team, I think has probably got to be the jewel in the crown, the extraordinary year of filmmaking, Mills.
Yeah, I think that was the best film we've put out. Without doubt, was something, dived in a bit deeper with something I've not done, kind of that sort of thing before. Quite proud of it, really, with
Mm.
access, but limited access, in terms of what I was allowed to do, what I wasn't allowed to do. And I'm really, thankful the RNA allowed me to be on site at all. So that was good, and so interesting to see how hard those boys work, man. I mean, like we
Really?
did. Well, it was just like, you know, we'd get up in the dark, 4 a.m., and I'd get up with them, and they'd all be there, and they'd go out and they'd get their briefing, they'd go out and do their tasks, they'd be back in. But Thursday, Friday, you had 6:30 tee offs, and they would, so, and they did two tee starts. So 6 o'clock, they're off the course, and then you're off, they have breakfast or do whatever they're going to do. And then they're just holding fire till like 7 p.m. because they've got to go out and re-rake, divot, cut the greens in the evenings. It was just mind-boggling. They wouldn't finish work till like 10 p.m. Then it'd be a couple of beers up at 3:30, go again. Just relentless. And this is practice days
Yeah.
from like, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
You were part of the band by the end, weren't you?
Oh, I had
How
my little
draining
red.
was that?
Like
when
you
you were
felt
doing,
sick when you were out in the sort of spectator areas. You just want to be back with the greenkeepers in the sort of in the pit.
There's a
Didn't you?
magnetism of the sheds that just kind of
Yeah.
draws you back. And to be honest, I was quite bored of all your company. Really, I just really wanted to be back with the lads, crunching beers on my head and stuff. But no, in all seriousness, the guys worked so hard, and I'd come to see you in the day, and I was like a zombie. I don't know if you remember at the Open, I was like a zombie,
Yeah.
and I'd see all the other like greenkeepers across the course, wherever they're all smiling, joking. I was like, "The fuck are they doing? They should be sleeping."
Yeah.
yeah, body clocks must just be, on it from sort of 3:30, 4 a.m. That must just be there.
And when you consider the majority of those people are volunteers, that's the
Yeah.
best bit. They come from all
50
around.
people, did you say, team of
I think they had it was 13 is the Royal Liverpool Green staff. I think they went up to 46 or 47,
Yeah.
something like that. So, and they got kit lent to them from various manufacturers to do what they needed to do, and because obviously they haven't got that much kit, they haven't got enough kit for 46 people. So yeah, amazing to see the kind of behind the scenes stuff. I don't know whether we'll do something like that again. I don't know.
How did that kind of play out in terms of like your expectations versus the reality of it? Because I guess you sort of had in your mind an idea of what you wanted to do, and you chatted with Bledge about it as a concept, like leading up to it. But when you were filming it, because it's a chunky film, it's like what, 35 minutes long? Were you like,
36,
okay,
yeah.
yeah, how much, yeah, how much footage have I got to get? And like, was there any kind of awareness as you going through it, like, oh God, like I need to be filming a lot here, or I need to be careful about how much I film? What
Yeah,
going
interestingly,
on?
this is a really boring story, but I did 2 days of filming prior to the Open.
Mm.
And one of the days that I was going up because I knew it was a good sunset, and I could go up with Bledge, and we could do some filming, and I could get all the aerials and stuff I needed while the stands were up, but um, before the competition started. So I went up there. My dog had just died, so I was like,
Oh,
I was pretty cut up, and I went like 2 days later. And I got to Raw Liverpool, got there, I'd say, "How you doing, boys? This is what we're going to do." And because my mind was kind of all over the place, I hadn't taken my drone. So I got up there to do work. I couldn't do anything. So I was just there with him. I didn't know what to do. And Bledge was like, "Well, I've got one. You can use mine." So all that footage from the Open is from James Bledge's drone, because I'd kind of, in my mindless state, kind of packed and not packed
oh,
my bloody drone. So that was all off Bledge's, which was I was lucky he had it, really, but it was mind blowing stuff. He had a great sunset that evening. And after that, to answer your question, after that, I had the first 4 minutes of the film before the Open started.
mm,
So I knew I'd already cut it. I knew exactly how the start was going to be, which
yeah.
kind of like led me through then to kind of what I was going to do for the Open. So it was weird being sat on the first 4 minutes of the Open film, kind of a month before the Open, but yeah, it kind of just happened quite organically. I'd like to say that I had a a shot list and storyboard, but I just went and filmed stuff and put it together afterwards. Really,
It's a big beast. It's a lot of work to do something like that. If I'm being brutally honest, it's really easy for me to say because I don't bear the consequences of creating it. But I think there's space for more of those types of projects next year.
Yeah.
And
Would
I
be
know you look there and you're like, oh, I know.
no, I'd like to do more. I would like to do more.
Very
We do
rewarding,
other
I can imagine,
things.
when you do it, but it's a hell of a lot of work.
Yeah,
And
and we
there's
do other
lots of other
things on
things.
top of the public facing content. And at the moment, a lot of time is being wrapped up in the other side of the business. So I'd like to do more public stuff. I'd like to do more YouTube stuff, more podcasts. Just about finding the time to do it. But there
How
is
did it
exciting
feel?
things afoot. So
I think we
Sorry.
should set ourselves a goal again, something
Yeah.
on Sky or on TV.
I'd love to get something on Sky. I think that could have gone on Sky.
We just didn't have the time, or we hadn't planned it. It's where it's like, hindsight. So many of these things, like with hindsight, would have done things
Yeah.
different. But I think actually that's just part of the learning experience. But that, if we'd have just been thoughtful about that in advance, because it's good. You put a lot of time in it. You just want more people to watch it, I think, is the fact of the matter.
That's the
We're
dream.
not doing this stuff with a goal of trying to tickle the YouTube algorithm. That's not really a goal of ours. So we're not looking to monetize heavily through YouTube, So, you just want more people to see that stuff.
Yeah.
Just concerned, boys, with pith here because
Great.
we're
Let's
50,
move on.
We're
Good
at
year,
50
Tom.
minutes. Hang on, there's got to be some even better ifs. It can't all be fluff here.
I think there's too frequent use of the word like recently in your podcasting vocab. There's a lot of like creeping in. I want to see that reduced. I've talked to you about that before. I will continue to keep bringing this up until
Is this true, Bruce? Like?
Yeah, there's quite. In fact, I know where Sam's got that from, and it's that video that you sent through. No, it's the video that was put on Instagram of the Pine Valley match, wasn't it? That was a really fun podcast to record, and you had the subtitles go on there as well, Mills. And you do say like quite a few times because I remember thinking the same thing there. So that's where you got that from, Sam. I don't know whether you twigged that in his previous podcast performances earlier in the year, and that just reaffirmed it, or whether indeed you have just taken that from the Pine Valley.
No, I spotted it.
Okay. Fair.
So I've watched it creep in. I've kept quiet on it, and I'm going to out him on it now. And it's only a minor thing. For me, it's the difference between an A- and an A.
Okay. Yeah. I think what
okay. Taking this really well.
Yeah.
Anything else, you're praising Bruce.
Well, look, I mean, again, you sort of alluded to it earlier, how I probably, recognize the amount of work that goes into the filmmaking and just general technical expertise that you bring to cookie jar Mills. And so I don't maybe ask for the same level of sort of polish or kind of, sort of fine nitpicking that I did a couple of years ago. I would like to see the odd lip smack or bit of sort of heavy breathing edited out of the podcast where possible. But I realize
Sam's such a heavy breather.
It's because I'm so out of shape.
No, but
I'm so out of shape. I'm right on the cusp of time. I think I am so close to type 2 diabetes right now. I have got to get myself in check. Like, I've got to do it. I think this is where the heavy breathing's creeping in. I'm already becoming like I'm a gout survivor at the moment. The way we're going, I'm going to have sleep apnea and type 2 diabetes within 12 months unless we get this corrected. So why don't we try and monitor the heavy breathing in the pods as being a sort of a lead indicator of that?
Well, I accept that there is a bit of it on Sam and I to just speak a little bit better. But I think there's also a bit on the edit side. I mean, I was lip smacking quite a bit. I probably lip smacked in this podcast as well, but just a bit too much.
Licking your chops.
Yeah. That kind of thing. So
yeah, but the thing is, like,
at the time, Mills, I know you're a busy man. If there is a way of making us sound a little bit better than we actually do, then that would be
It's the difference between editing a pod in 10 minutes and editing a pod in an hour and a half, right?
No, taking much longer than that. What was it? There was someone's pod that was recently. So like, thank you to our producer Dave, who's turned this around in 2 days, and I was like, bloody hell, Dave,
What's
pull
Dave
your
doing?
socks up. We can get this done in 10 minutes if you ignore all the lip smacking and heavy breathing. We're fine.
So
Okay,
hard to know. Right, let's move on. Tom,
I'm going to do Sam.
Do mine.
I'm going to do Sam. Okay. I'm going to start with golf performance, if that's okay.
Mm.
So you've reduced your handicap this year. So well done, you.
Have I?
Yeah, you have. Yeah, you went at the start of the year, January 1st. You were 3.3, and you went down to like 2.6 or 7, and then you're back up at 3.0. So you've actually reduced it. So well done, you. I think. Well done, you.
Wow.
Such a nag.
However, I would say that something you always complain about is competitive golf, and that you don't have enough competitive golf. You've only played 8 competitive rounds of golf. You've only put 8 cards in this year.
Is that right?
Yeah, and 2 of those, so 4 of those were on 36 hole days. See the club
I've
champs.
played 6 days of competitive golf.
Yeah. I mean, that's just not good enough. Now, which leads me on to a point. Bruce, I actually looked at yours because I wanted to see how we were all doing here.
Thunder.
Bruce has got 15 rounds this year. So that's all I'm going to do in terms of Bruce's, but 15 rounds of where your card went in. I've got 6. Now, I also had 2 36-hole days, so I only played golf like 3 times this year, 4 times. Should we be putting in more cards?
Yeah.
General play.
Should, yeah.
Because I think we need, this is an important one. Sam's
Do you
really
think we should, Bruce?
Well, no, I think we should. Okay, got to be careful. I put that. I think we need to be doing more cards. My preference would be the majority of them are for, in true competitive rounds, medals, Stablefoods, that sort of thing. But I also, I'm open to general play because I think we all do it in the spirit of like, right, I'm going to go and put out a card today. It's not like, oh, I've had a good round. I gave a few putts. Yeah.
Oh yeah, clearly. Yeah.
I think we're all pretty sort of traditional, players of the game. So I think, a moderate number of general play rounds is acceptable. Keep the balance heavily in favor of true competitive rounds. But yeah, we should.
There was a problem with that though. Is that I think we don't not play competition golf because we don't want to play competition golf. It's the fact there's the reality when you work in golf, it's quite difficult, and you got young children. It's quite difficult to be like, right, Saturday I'm off. See ya. So it's like, I suppose my question is, if competition golf is unattainable in the short term because of various commitments outside of golf, I would put it to you, Sam, that you should put in more general play cards.
I'm thoughtful on this because it's I quite like competitive golf when it's like something to play for. I don't like the thought of propping up a handicap on general play golf. And yeah, what I would like to do this year, time's been a premium, hasn't it? A real premium, because we've stretched ourselves in what we've tried to take on. There's been a lot going on for me away from Cookie Jar as well. It's been quite busy. So when it's got to Saturday, it hasn't felt like priority number 1 has been going and getting a medal score going, which I'd like to change next year. But also, if I'm being brutally honest, I would like to play in a few things. I'd actually like to expose myself to a bit more competitive golf in different environments, because I think it's all well and good saying, oh, yeah, a diet of lots of scratch foursomes match play and all that's very good. But I'd actually quite like to go and play in a few things. Jokingly talk about the Tri Open, but the idea of playing in some really cool opens.
Yeah.
The Cashmere Cup down at Royal North Devon. Now, the issue is some of these things you can't get in when you're off an absolute, you're on a bit of a sort of a fudges sort of category 1 thing there of like a 3. It's like, yeah, I can play well and I can shoot 82 or whatever as well. Like I'm not really much of a threat on the course for breaking par. I think try and get a bit better at golf, try and put a few cards in, and try and play in a few things. I don't know whether I want to go out and playing in millions of opens, but I'd be really interested to try and play in a few events that are a bit quirky or a bit out there. And I think, yeah, I mean, if we're back here in 12 months and I've put in 8 competition rounds, I think that would be a bit sad actually, because I've only got a few years before diabetes, gout, sleep apnea, and the whole lot. Yeah, my back will go, won't it, soon? this is last chance saloon now to make a run at it. So I think I've got to try and take that seriously this year.
Do you know how many rounds you played in 2022?
12.
13.
Right.
So
it's not
I
many.
mean,
We don't have much.
You've
at Blackwell.
only just lost a 2021 score out of your top 20.
Yeah. So there you go. So arguably my handicap is more irrelevant than it would be if I was putting in.
Yeah, I think so. I think the argument of saying that it's like, oh, I just love, I think it's only really valid if you play medal golf goes out the window when you say that's all well and good, but you're probably not playing to a handicap of 3.0. You just don't know because you're not playing enough golf for it to be reflective.
Okay.
I don't know. Wait,
is there anything about my professional contribution to this company, or is it mainly? I know I'm the sort of lead ball striker. I know I'm the sort of generational talent within the jar. I think that's the problem with my goal. I joke. This is sarcasm for anyone who doesn't pick up on sarcasm. I was chatting to somebody the other day, and I just said, it's hard. I just have to lean. I have to rely so heavily on talent with my game that it's actually just really difficult. I don't have a process I can drop into. It's all just leaning on talent.
And what was their reaction to
that? They got the sarcasm, thank God, because otherwise you'd look like such a tool.
But most of my stuff is golf related for you. But I'll tell you what's on there anyway. I would in the things that are really good this year, I'd say that you learned to play blades. You played them really well, and then couple that up with when we went for our Titleist fitting. You swallowed your pride and didn't take blades. You took the T100. So well done. I thought you were going to go in and say, I want blades, super blades with the extra stiff, ball strikers only.
It's quite hard when you just.
When you're such a ball striker.
No, it's quite hard when you sat there with somebody and you've got that level of resource. When you're at the Titleist fitting centre at Woburn and it's like, we welcome Cookie Jar Golf and Matt Wallace, you're thinking, right, okay, these guys probably know what they're talking about with this stuff. And yep, these things are just flying with a little bit more purpose and giving me a little bit more help. They're beautiful. I mean, I've got them in the bag. They're working really well.
I would say the biggest thing you've succeeded at this year professionally is I think you've learned to listen. I think there was a time where you would pounce like Simon Haynes, but I think you've really learned to listen well.
Which is, on the podcast or in general?
on the podcast. Do you not think?
Yeah. I don't know. I'm mindful that I'm the sort of volume player on the pod. I just
again, he can't help himself.
I throw a lot of stuff out there, and actually, sometimes when I've listened to pods, they're better when I'm not talking. As much as I would hate to admit it.
I'm not sure about
my best contribution to the pod this year is possibly the Alistair Beggs one. I think
the even better ifs. There's only a few. I'd say I think you could be more realistic with expectations. So just to put this in reference, I had a phone call from Sam, probably the best part of 2 months ago, telling me that for £10,000 we could start a Kimmel company. To which I was a bit nervous. I said, "No, it's fine. I've been on the phone to some brands in Scotland. I've got it all lined up. We're good to go."
Got a phone call a few days later from Tom and said, "Look, mate, you're my mate here, and I'm really proud. I love the energy." He's like, "I'm thinking there's a massive buck coming here, but like, I'm a bit concerned about how fast we're spending money here. Like, we're getting carried away here on merchandise with Peter Millar. You've just signed us up for some bucket hats, tour visors. We've got trips booked here, there, and everywhere. And now you're telling me you want to start an alcohol brand? Like, I've got to call this. This is getting carried away." And to be fair, I listened. I listened.
You did listen.
Shout out to VRSD, by the way, who are coming in hot with their new Kimmel.
Yeah, I think they beat us to it. They did beat us to it,
and they actually know what they're doing. It gives them a massive advantage in the business.
I think they would have bankrupted us. I think
they're actually a producer of spirits and know what they're doing. It's amazing that it really does.
And of course, thankful. Tom and I, in particular, are immensely thankful that they've come in and offered some sort of professionalism in that space. Because otherwise, I don't know what Sam would be up to right now.
And also, Wolfschmidt are back on the rise, aren't they? So
yeah.
So we would have been dusted. We would have just been. So I'm glad that. I would say the creative ideas I think could start again. So we had in 2022, you created, and this is all you created the Eclectic 18. That was your idea.
I didn't create that.
Okay, but the idea to do the podcast on it was your idea. And the course
Well,
diaries
no
was
one's going to
your
write a
idea.
reply, so I'll say yes. Course diaries, yeah.
We haven't had anything innovative in 2023.
Player profiles, I thought was quite neat.
Rebuttal. I didn't know we were doing rebuttals. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm not. Yeah, no, I'm all up for it. Like, if you want ideas, I can throw ideas down.
yeah. I think we could do.
I am genuinely wanting to stretch ourselves next year in terms of what we're going after. So I think that is, I think challenge accepted.
Okay. And I think that was for any listeners if they've got any ideas or anything that we could tackle.
And then I can sell them off as my own.
Exactly. It's good because you do all the comms as well. So people will come in and say, "Oh, hey, Cookie Joe, I've got this idea that I think would be really good," and you'll just come to me and Bruce and be like, "Oh, boys, I've got this really good idea." Just deleted it. Just deleted it out of the inbox. But I've had a really
You're
good
forgetting
idea.
I've spent an entire career standing in front of other people's work, selling it off as my own. I'm absolutely will not frightened to continue to do it, gents.
Which leaves me to leave
Record
the
there.
stage open for Sam and Bruce.
Okay, Bruce. I found this difficult to do, really, if I'm honest, because
Bruce is perfect.
no, I suppose this year's been a quieter year for Bruce on Cookie Jar because he has been very, very committed with work, and I suppose there's a lot going on. It's like it's almost a bit of a coming of age the last 18 months for Bruce. Really, a lot of time in academia. I'll touch on his golf. I mean, I think a big part of Bruce's role is being the show pony for Cookie Jar. Is it without doubt the strongest ball striker. When we went to went to Woburn for the fitting, and there's a lot of expectation management around the MBs. Things been thrown out that look, Max Homer, he taps out on the blades at 6. He goes into the T100s for the 4 and 5 iron. Nobody on tour is hitting a TSR4 driver. It's really real bespoke players kit this. And you and me nipped up to go and get a sandwich for lunch and come back down and yep, no problem, boys. All set. Bruce is 2 to wedge in the MBs. Not a problem here. We're getting all the launch windows. And you're thinking, oh, bloody hell. Well, how's he doing this? And I think his ability to hit a golf ball is amazing. That said, one of the greatest enigmas of Cookie Jar is how Bruce is not off a lower handicap. It is absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, no, and I'm jokes aside, like, this is actually a genuine comment. Because his short game, I think, Tom, is more impressive than his ball striking. His ball striking is elite.
Do you know what someone says?
And his handicap this year, do you know it has doubled?
Has it?
Really?
It has doubled.
Oh, what am I? I'm like point something, 0.9 or 0.8.
Am I checked? You're at 0.4, 0.8. Now,
someone said to me once, "It was like, oh, Bruce, you guys talk about with Bruce like reverence. Like, is he a good player?" It's like, yeah, Bruce is a ball striker. Like, smokes the ball, hits a driver great, hits long irons great. What's he like with a short hand? Yeah, just peppers flags. All right, short game not very good. No, electric. God, he must be a terrible putter. No, he holds it from everywhere, and it's like
it is actually ridiculous. He's put 15 cards in. I mean, I remember, again, this just sounds like such a backslapping bod, this, isn't it? But when we played the new course at Layboard, I think Bruce knocked it. He'd never looked at the course and he shot 67. Never even looked at it before. It was something daft. You were on an absolute heater. You're quite modest with it, but you do hit it great. So I don't know. I feel like in there, if we can carve out enough time next year, Bruce, there's the potential for something outrageous to happen on the. I don't know, like, it's 2024 in a couple of days' time. We can't keep hanging on the president's putter of 2021. That's all I'm going to say to you.
Or even the one of 2020, because that, it was even longer ago.
Is it 2020? Yeah, exactly. Well, there you go. It's like, there was a time. We're in our 20s here, Bruce. Or so we're not we, but you are. It's time. You got to get out there and win some stuff.
Fair.
Any
Take that.
comeback on that?
I'd take that on board. No, I actually, for all your kind words, do feel like, yeah, working life is sort of catching up with me a bit, and the ability to actually hit the ball out the middle of the club face has become a bit harder. But no, your point's well made. Do need to just sort of play a bit more and kind of get into the swing of things really quicker. It's funny though, because as you mentioned there, or alluded to, when I was gallivanting around as a student, able to hit balls during the week, it made turning up to play a medal on a Saturday a bit easier, which I understand is a complete luxury now to have. Like, it's not the way the world works, is it? And funnily enough, working in golf with Cookie Jar, and then my actual job sort of being quite full time as well. As you guys mentioned there, like it is actually harder, I think, carving out time to play golf for yourself when you think like, well, that could be time I'm spending on Cookie Jar instead. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's
like,
tough.
It's
It's
a
tough for
paradox.
sure.
Working in the game, working in
It's-
golf, kind of harder to, I don't know, get in the right headspace to play golf just for pleasure.
I just want to circle around just quickly, Bruce, about my editing. I'll probably re-record that and say, your job isn't quite full time with a lawyer. It's full time. It's not quite full time.
Bruce is working as a corporate finance solicitor. And it's pretty much full time. It's
no, it just is full-time.
Somewhere north 60 hours a week. It's fairly committed. No, you're spot on. But the great enigma in all of this is there are guys that are trotting around off extremely low numbers, winning events, playing in things. I suppose, I'm sort of, needling you a bit, but like there's a serious golfer in there somewhere waiting to break out that can happen, which I must admit really does pain me, because I don't mind it when I quite like it when I play with people and they sort of say, oh, you hit that one nicely. But whenever you play with Bruce, it is like you are just the beginner in the room. I'll never forget playing, I'm not going to say where or with who, but it was almost, this guy was my partner. He was like, yeah, you just hit it down there with your little 5-wood or something. Right, Bruce, you can go for the green. Bruce's ball striking is mightily impressive, as much as it pains me to admit. I will move us on slightly. I suppose I always call Bruce the head of audit. Your attention to minutia is remarkable. that has stuck. You are our eyes and ears on detail. I think that is important.
We have a moment for the staff handbook.
120 pages for a podcast. A lot of people would say that was maybe over-servicing it, but
that was the short form, actually. It was
100. It was, yeah.
It took 60 pages.
I saw a lot of detailed stuff about, maternity policy and all that sort of stuff. And I thought, what, do we need it? Bruce is a belt and braces kind of guy. And I think something's worth doing. It's worth doing properly. And that's, being a solicitor is really like that plays into that strength, doesn't it? Of that kind of thing. That said, I would love to see more. I'd love to see you just go rogue sometimes. I'd love to just, that bit in Good Will Hunting, and his brother, whatever, and he comes and he says, I just wait for the day where I wake up one morning and I walk to the door and I knock on, I look through the window and you're not there and you've packed up and you've left the town. That's sometimes how I feel. I sometimes feel like, bloody hell, Bruce just went rogue on the Instagram story today and he just went on a tear. Or he just fired up Twitter. He just couldn't sit this one out. I'd love to see you just dive in there.
It's actually really quite amusing that you said that, because I was this close to doing that earlier today. My girlfriend got me a Whoop for Christmas. And do you remember when we did the Whoop official unofficial sponsorship of Cookie Jar? So I had a Whoop account, but then just stopped using it for one reason.
I remember.
Thought, right, okay, this is nice. Like, this is a nice Christmas prize. I do want to kind of get a bit fitter and get in the gym and that sort of thing. Whoop customer service, safe to say, is absolutely heinous when you want to try and reactivate an account with a 12-month membership option. They're just so unbelievably unhelpful, and they're like, well, no, you got to do this. Oh, it's bought this way. Just like terrible. They just send you sort of like a little email that doesn't really sort of address any of your concerns, asks a load of questions of you. You provide that information, they don't come back to you. So I was quite close just to going on a bit of a creative tear on the Twitter earlier, on the cookie jar Twitter, and just taking shots at Woot. But I think on this occasion, it was probably fair that I didn't go rogue.
Yeah, I think we're talking more of a creative capacity as opposed to just using the platform to tackle multinational
I just think
conglomerates.
we've got to do it. Like I think that's it. I think but within some great contributions to it. I suppose I feel like I've missed you on tour this year. It'd be nice to get more golfing together. We got to figure out some of that stuff. We've been at events together though this year. A couple of trips to France and we obviously had the Netherlands. There's more journeys, more adventures to be had. Gentlemen, this podcast is probably running at about 1:10, and we started this podcast saying all of our podcasts were going to be all podcasts were going to be 50 minutes. From next year, there will be 2-parters. We'll find ways of doing that. But for this one,
the thing is, this is the problem. So it's 1 hour 15. So what do? Do a 45 and a 30? Then that doesn't obey your rule.
Could you
stick 20 minutes of adverts in it?
Hang on.
Yeah,
you could do 240s.
Hmm?
Could do 2 40-minute pods, couldn't you? I don't know. It's maybe I felt like I was really sure of myself earlier on that it should be a hard stop at a certain number and you split them into 2 pods. But I know The Rest is History is a great podcast, Sam, and I have a fondness for it that matches yours. But maybe they're just better. Embrace difference. We got to embrace the Philip Truitt 2-hour megathon podcast and accept it for
I just think there's like a parameter, isn't there? I just feel like the goal is sub an hour, but then there's like discretion to go to 1:10.
No, but I just think like if you go up
but
to
1:20 automatically becomes a 240 minuters.
Yeah.
But if you can go up to 1:15, we can just give out prizes. Like I'll send you a golf ball.
We actually had several people when I put that on the end of a long podcast emailing him for a driver. Incredible.
We can do more of that.
But no, all jokes aside, I echo everything you said earlier, Tom, about being very grateful.
Yeah, and me too.
And I think we've got a few things up our sleeve, which mean hopefully we keep the trajectory. Like the things is always like trying to think every month, can we just make JAR a little bit better than it was last month? And we don't always nail it, but I think if we keep that sort of focus on, it's weird, isn't it? It's never been a big step change to what we're doing with this. It's always just felt like just a series of increments, month on month on month. And it's cool. Like I love this so much. Like, absolutely. I love golf as much, if not more than when we started it.
Yeah.
I think we're as close and closer than we were when we started it. And it's lovely. It's brilliant. I absolutely love it. I love the ride.
I think when you get targeted with those inspirational Instagram things, the way they're just telling you how good everything is and how they got to where they are, the one thing that comes up a lot is consistency. And I think I echo what you said. We haven't done anything different. We've just carried on doing it. I think this is probably just as poor as it was during the pilot, but we're still doing it. So we'll keep doing it. I think. Should we keep going?
I think it's worth sticking at it. Yeah, I think so.
I think it's worse. Anyway, we've never been good at signing off, so let's just get on with it.
A happy new year to everyone, though, and presumably the next you'll hear from us will be some dispatches from Rye and the US
and the Hoopy Match Club. Yeah, thank you so much to everyone listening and following us on our various channels for all your support, and bring on 2024.
Until next time.
Adios.
Watch this.